Hello everybody, and thank you so much for joining me again for another react video. If you saw my last one, I don't know how you sat through the whole thing, but if you didn't, I'm going to link that below. And this is, again, my second video, so let's get into it. This one is called Autism and Aspergers, 5 Intriguing Differences You Need to Know. So again, another clickbait title. I guess that's what you can expect from Dan Jones of the Aspie world. So I would like to say at the beginning that these are my opinions, and I try to cite facts as much as possible, which it doesn't seem like he likes to do that. Anyway, so I wanted to say that the diagnostic criteria, the DSM-5, April 8th, 2015, the specific article that was posted says that individuals with a well-established DSM-IV, so 5, diagnosis of autistic disorder, Asperger's disorder, or pervasive developmental disorder not otherwise specified should be given the diagnosis of autism spectrum disorder. So basically how it goes is Asperger's is autism. It has been absorbed by the same diagnosis. I do realize that in some of my old videos it's life with Asperger's, but I was a lot more uneducated then, and I will freely admit my wrongdoings because I do have a formal diagnosis of autism and I didn't at the time. Let's get into this, and I will do what I did last time where I play the video pretty loud. You guys can hear what he has to say. I'm not showing his video. If you want to watch his facial expressions and all this kind of stuff and look at his face, feel free to do that on your own time, but I'm sparing you. So yeah, here we go.
In this video, I'll be talking about autism and Asperger's so that by the end of the video, you'll know the difference. Coming up.
So again, there's no difference. He manufactured that. So let's get that straight. Oh, so he said at the bottom, this content is based on old information and will be updated soon. However, when he did create this video, he was told by various members of the autistic community that he was wrong. And from what I heard, he said that he's not going to take the video down because his numbers and I guess his monetary thing that is going on, monetizing his videos, it will mess that up. So, says he's gonna make a new video, but I'm gonna beat him to that. So, let's continue, and like I said, he is gonna update it, but regardless, this video is still on YouTube, and people are still seeing that, and if they don't have captions on, as far as I know, they're not gonna see that it's gonna be updated.
Hey, I'm Dan. I have Asperger's syndrome, OCD, ADHD, and dyslexia.
I have Asperger's syndrome. Let's keep going.
Just a really quick disclaimer. I'm not actually saying in this video that every single person who has Asperger's syndrome or classic autism falls into these specific rules. This is literally just like a basic medical, I guess, or professional outliner of...
This is a basic medical, I guess, a professional outliner of the differences. Dude, you're not a professional and you are not a doctor. In my last react video, you'll see that I got pretty freaking upset at the end of the video because he felt like he was qualified to give a father information about his son vomiting. So, again, his ego is freaking huge, and somebody needs to freaking take a needle and pop that balloon because he is just, wow.
To show like some clear-cut differences between the majority of the people. Also, Asperger's is an autism spectrum condition, and it was taken out of the DSM-5 nomenclature for diagnosing people. So now it's just autism spectrum disorder, and it's becoming autism spectrum condition. So Asperger's is autism and classic autism is autism. They're all under the umbrella of the autism spectrum. So that is something to be aware of. Okay, back to the video. So
the fact that he just said that and yet he still made this video after people told him not to, I guess he felt like that disclaimer was a okay thing to do.
So Asperger's and autism, what's the difference? Let's find out. So the first difference I want to discuss, and let me just set the tone of the language here. I'm going to be talking about classic autism when I talk about classic types of autism, and I'll talk about Asperger's syndrome when I talk about Asperger's syndrome. Now, a lot of people don't like to use classification terminology anymore because they find that it's derogative. But for the purpose of this video, educationally, we'll talk about Asperger.
I like how he keeps using the term educationally, and I'm obviously being sarcastic because he is not an educator. He is somebody that should be speaking from his own personal experiences, yet he keeps trying to present it like he's an educator, and he's not.
It was like a higher functioning, and then classic autism was a lower functioning, even though...
He just used high functioning and low functioning. That is not okay. Most people prefer high needs and low needs. I don't know if he's gonna fix his terminology, but it seems to me like that is not something that is on his radar or even something he seems to care about. You can tell I have a pretty big freaking vegetarian beef with this guy.
A lot of people don't like to use functioning labels. This is just for the purpose of this video. Okay, so number one is IQ, or intellect. So basically, people with Asperger's syndrome usually have an average to above average IQ, meaning that they are intellectually quite bright and they tend to focus on like science and maths and history and some very deep scientific, complex, puzzled kind of computer-natured topics, because that's the way that their brain is.
Okay, so he's saying that people who have Asperger's syndrome are really good at like math and science and computers because that's the way their brain is wired. Again, like I tried to say before, and I will reiterate what I said in my last video, each person is different and what they experience is different and what they like is different. So, for instance, me, I am not good at like any of those things. I am better at, you know, doing art and visual things and kind of that kind of stuff. I was never good at that. So for him to say that that's how their brain is wired, he doesn't know what the hell he's talking about. He really, really doesn't.
And other things that they're interested in, but they excel in those areas. Now, looking at the comparison between that and classic autism, people of classic autism have average to below average IQs. So the difference here is that people with Asperger's syndrome will usually or typically display a higher IQ average than that of a person with classic autism. A person with classic autism won't really be interested in the magnitude of intellect that a person with Asperger's syndrome usually displays. People like Albert Einstein had...
Okay, so what he's saying about the IQ thing, I can't confirm or deny because, again, autism is a spectrum and Asperger's falls under that spectrum. And I'm scrolling through his, like, description of his video, and again, you know, this content is based on old information. Updated video will be available soon. Yet, when he's saying any of these things about IQ score, there is nowhere in this description or in his video where he is citing sources. So when you're doing something like this, citing sources is a really important thing because it backs up what you say. So if you're going to be as bold and as daring as Dan Jones likes to be, at least freaking back up what you say. I just have a very particular beef with people that continue to spread misinformation, whether or not they say they're going to correct it. People are still going to find this video and they're not necessarily going to see that this is old, outdated information because it's still on YouTube and he is still perpetuating all kinds of lies.
Asperger's syndrome. There are other super famous people like Nikola Tesla, probably Elon Musk, and other people like that who display these traits of Asperger's syndrome, and you can see how their IQ would be set higher than the average person.
That didn't make any sense.
Okay, so number two is verbal communication. Now, people with classic autism usually have little to no verbal communication skills. They can't develop these because the type of autism spectrum condition that they have and the way their brain is worked is leaving them with difficulty learning these skills. Now, a person with Asperger's syndrome will have a very good verbal...
Where is he pulling these facts from? Honestly, I have no freaking idea. Again, really bothers me. Dude, if you're autistic, like you say you are, and I'm autistic, and other people are, again, there are people that have selective mutism. There are people that are nonverbal. There are people that are verbal. You can't freaking classify everybody as a whole. So that is very, very, very problematic. And the fact that he's saying Asperger's syndrome will have a very good verbal communication skill set. Dude, where are you getting these facts? Show me receipts.
Communication skill set that they have learned and developed over many years. And people with Asperger's syndrome usually have great verbal skills and they are very good at talking. Okay, socially they may not be as advanced as a typical neurotypical person, but verbally they can have verbal communications and be very good at verbal communication. As people with classic autism will have difficulty talking, people with Asperger's syndrome will have ease of talking and actually creating verbal conversation. That is the main difference there for number 2.
How can you separate autism and Asperger's and say that people who are autistic, or with autism as he likes to say, basically can't communicate, and then people who have Asperger's can communicate? They are spectrums. They are under the same spectrum. So I'm not sure what he's going to say, but again, no receipts. I can't trace where he's getting any of these facts because I don't think they're factual. I don't know what research he did, but it seems to me like he's talking based off his own experiences.
Okay, so number 3 is vocabulary. Now, people with classic autism have little to no vocabulary at all, and they can't develop those skills, and they have...
How does he have the audacity, really, to make claims like that again? I don't know, there's some people that really seem to enjoy his content. My mouth can't help but drop to the floor every time like he utters these words.
Very difficult time trying to learn or develop any skills in learning vocabulary at all. People with Asperger's syndrome have a vast, large and quite huge volume of vocabulary that is usually somewhat complex, and they have some almost not an obsession but an interest in vocabulary and expanding that vocabulary. So people with Asperger's syndrome have a usually really good vocabulary skill set, whereas people on the classic autism side wouldn't really tend to have that good a vocabulary or a large vocabulary set at all. So people with classic autism, limited vocabulary. People with...
You know, I wonder if he knew when he was making this video that all he was going to do was spew a bunch of BS out of his mouth. Because, like, honestly, like, even when this video was posted, which was only January 24th of 2019, by that time, as I said again, if he would have done his research, he would have found out that what he is saying is he's literally lying to people. And I'm scrolling down to see, and wow, like, he has 1,816 comments on this video. So that is a lot of people who are going to buy into this, and there's a lot of gullible people, and they seem to follow his content.
Syndrome, quite a high volume of vocabulary in their vocabulary skill set. Okay, so number 4 is day-to-day skill set. Now, day-to-day skill set is very interesting. I'll outline what a day-to-day skill set is. Basically, the things that a neurotypical person does on a daily basis, which is like getting up, getting themselves ready for work or whatever, or school, and then getting themselves to school and going off on those tasks. Don't think anything of it, but there are various skills that are entwined there in getting up and doing all those things. Now, there's things that range from like executive function skills to hygiene and then getting dressed and things like that, which is basically your daily life skills. Now, a person with Asperger's syndrome can learn to put on their clothes. They can learn to brush their own teeth, and then they can learn like things like the importance of going shopping, or the things like the importance of getting a job. They may need, help with managing that job or managing their finances and organizing their life, but they can still learn the skills that they need to physically prepare themselves for something in the real world tasks. Now, a person who displays traits of classic autism would have limited skill set in this region and would then rely on support and help lifelong for this type of skill set. So they may have issues with hygiene and cleanliness. They may have issues with trying to, go...
Autism, again, is a spectrum. There are people with low needs and there are people with high needs. People with high needs may need help getting themselves ready for the day, or their cleanliness, or the kind of things that he's talking about. That is not specific to Aspergers and autism. When something is a spectrum, it means that everybody who's on the spectrum is going to experience things differently. Can you tell, even just making this video, I'm doing it because I really want to showcase that there's another point of view that's not his. And yes, there's plenty of us out there who just shake our head at him. You should see the conversation over on Twitter right now. It's glorious.
Bathroom on their own and use a toilet. They may have issues of putting on their own clothes, and they have little to no concept of the reasoning for going out and doing shopping, depending on their obviously level on the spectrum. But
level on the spectrum, he really has to watch his words, because I had somebody ask me the other day, oh, so what part of the spectrum are you on? So if you're making comments like level of the spectrum, you are continuing to perpetuate like untruthful things. He could say depending on their personal experiences or their personal needs as an autistic person, which is a spectrum. Like, there's other ways to word things, and he really, it really wouldn't hurt him to pick up a dictionary, because he seems to think that he's a freaking expert on vocabulary. So maybe pick up a dictionary, Dan Jones. Maybe.
Classic autism type person would need daily support and day-to-day help with those tasks, because they just don't really develop those skills typically in a classic autism case. So a person with Asperger's syndrome can
classic autism. Person with Asperger's. Classic autism. You know what? Classic autism is not a freaking thing, dude.
But independently using their day-to-day skills. But a person with classic autism would need daily support and lifelong support for just those daily tasks alone, let alone emotional and physical support for other things. Okay, so number 5 is speech delay. Now, as autism is a developmental condition, it does have like a gradual time period.
Autism is neurotype, thank you.
Like develops from one thing to another. Now, one thing that is interesting between the difference of Asperger's syndrome and classic autism is speech delay.
Not true, not true, not true.
Typically, children who have Asperger's syndrome will not display speech delay in growing up. Like they'll have typically a normal speech delay. Like I said, as their vocabulary is super intense and very varied, then their speech delay doesn't come into it. They'll gradually get speech. They'll learn from like TV and movies and mimicking other people through echolalia and things like that. And then they'll learn how to speak.
If you want to learn about echolalia, watch NeuroWonderful's video about echolalia, and don't freaking waste your time with any Aspie World videos. Please. I'm begging you.
At a typical rate, right? Now, people or kids and children with autism, of classic autism, they will have a speech delay in growing up. So growing up, they will have a varied speech delay, and their speech will be very varied.
You can't classify an entire group of people and say that they're all going to be afflicted by one thing. It is a spectrum. Everybody on the spectrum is different. You can't freaking classify an entire group of people like that. You just freaking can't. I'm really trying to hold my anger in, but literally every video that I've watched so far, which is like, this is being my second one, I am just flabbergasted that he has been able to amass such a following with lying in both videos that I just watched.
Obviously, the delay will be there, but then also there'll be very big gaps in what they can say and how they relate that to real-world situations. So in short, Asperger's syndrome, typically not really much of a speech delay. Classic autism, there will be a speech delay present most of the time. Okay, guys, my next video over here.
Okay, so in closing, I just want to say that this video was only made 7 months ago. So for him to say this content is based on old information, dude, you made it 7 months ago. The freaking, diagnostic criteria that includes Asperger's in autism and absorbed it was in 2015. It is 2019. So the fact that he decided to perpetuate old information, most of it seems like he manufactured it because, again, he didn't cite any sources. He has had 4 years. 4 years. Since that information came out. So seriously, he made this for clickbait. He made this to appease his audience, which seems to mostly be parents of children who are autistic, who seek out information from him. And believe me, I don't understand why. I personally don't find him very charming or very, engaging. Honestly, the amount of times that this video made me angry, like, obviously, you can tell. You can tell. So I'm going to link the other people that I mentioned in my other video. I'm going to link my other video below. I'm going to link NeuroWonderful's video on Echolalia below. And I'm also going to link the information about the DSM, which I was referring to before. Because unlike Dan, I like to show receipts and provide information that is going to be helpful. So thank you for watching my video, and I don't expect you to subscribe or to like or to share, because realistically, if you've watched this video, there's probably a reason for it, and maybe the reason is that you just can't stand the Aspie world. So thank you for watching. And yes, I know it's gonna say subscribe and all that kind of stuff, but I don't expect you to. But maybe you got something you want to say to me. So thanks.